Okay, welcome SAF. We are here on the northeast corner of Stadium Woods, which is a old growth, uneven age forest on the Virginia Tech campus, sort of sandwiched right in between the town, which is behind us here, or in front of us here, and behind us is literally the corner of Stadium Woods. It is about an 11.5 acre tract of forest, and it runs literally due north-south. It's a very long, thin rectangle, which actually is kind of unfortunate because there's a lot of edge effect in Stadium Woods because it's so long and skinny, and a lot of the trees suffer a little more on the edge. But right behind us is tree number 1, as labeled by the master naturalist who did a complete inventory of the woods about 10 years ago, close to that now. We're having some discussion about doing more of that. And tree number 1 is somewhat historic, one for its very, very old age. It's estimated to be one of the oldest trees in the woods. There's dozens of trees over 300 years old in the total woods. And this tree, it's an estimate, is estimated to be over 400, but it is just an estimate, and we can't age it because you may be able to see the big scar on it. We can't at all stick an increment borer in there to get an age because we'll get it stuck and have a big mess doing that. It's also somewhat famous now because back in 2012, when Stadium Woods was threatened with some development, the Colbert Report show, before it was on late night, they were interested in maybe coming to one of the student rallies to save Stadium Woods. And the students named this tree the mighty Colbert Oak in his honor. And in the end, they didn't come, but it still became kind of a neat thing. And literally at this spot was a site of a great big student rally with speakers and tents and refreshments and even songs written about Stadium Woods. The students really got into saving it back then. Okay, so now we're inside Stadium Woods here a bit now, and it is, as I mentioned, an old growth, uneven aged forest. And if you look around in here, because you're going to see a lot of different tree diameters in here, which just from looking at that, you kind of have a pretty good impression that it's an uneven aged forest. And it has all the components of an old growth forest. It has a lot of dead woody debris on the ground. It has standing dead woody debris. It has all the different canopy layers, understory, midstory, and overstory. And in fact, we quantified all the diameters out here, and it literally is a fairly balanced, uneven aged forest. And you know, I can't always say those terms, but to the SAF, I can, and you ought to know what that means. And as you also know, that is pretty rare anywhere in the United States. So Stadium Woods has a lot of unique features. Being an old growth forest right in an urban area, and then on top of that, it's not even aged, it's uneven aged. So we have an uneven aged, old growth, urban forest. And I don't mean urban forest like streets and such. It's in an urban location. People can literally come out of their homes and walk their dogs out here, and students going home at the end of the day can walk through the trails to the various parking lots. So we have a lot of big white oaks in Stadium Woods, but big trees are not always big giants. Okay, so here is our, not a big tree, but our state champion choke cherry, which is only about, maybe 6 inches in diameter, maybe 25 feet tall, maybe 10, 15 foot crown spread, but it is in fact the biggest choke cherry in the state of Virginia, found in Stadium Woods. Now, it's also odd that there's choke cherry in Stadium Woods. Because it's this old growth structure, there are a lot of plants in the understory out here that I can't find anywhere else in the whole county. I don't know of another place that has choke cherries in any of the locations that I travel to teach tree ID or any of our labs. And in fact, in the course, we don't even teach choke cherry because they don't ever run into it. But they're all through Stadium Woods. And another kind of unique understory plant is we've got some American holly, which you will run into occasion in the mountains over here in Blacksburg, but there's a good many of them in the understory out here. And then we've got God's practical joke on Dendro students, the alternate leaf dogwood out here. That they always enjoy seeing that one when it's a dogwood leaf and it has alternate attachment. So that's out here in the woods as well. Okay, now one of the big ongoing problems with Stadium Woods, being that it's in an urban area, is a lot of invasive plants. And a lot of them were probably brought in after World War II, when literally on one small end of Stadium Woods, they had a housing for World War II married veterans. Like a lot of the land-grant universities did that. And they had some trailers tucked into this north end of Stadium Woods. And back then, a lot of privet was being planted, a lot of the euonymus was being planted, a lot of English ivy was being planted, and we've got that and plenty more out here to contend with. And mostly the understory in front of me here is a lot of privet and Amur honeysuckle. There's multiflora, rose arching out over there. There is also winged euonymus and a creeper vine euonymus, winter creeper euonymus I call it, also out there as well. And the master naturalists of the New River master naturalists, they do a lot of volunteer work out here, a lot, tirelessly, to remove the invasive plants. But it's kind of like, you know, painting a large bridge. You get to the end and you got to go back and start painting again. So they keep at it, but there's always plenty of it out here. So that's probably one of the bigger priorities, that if we were able to get a handle on that, but not without cost. It would take a lot of effort to do that out here. Again, being in an urban forest, you know, we have our invasive plants, but we also deal with large amounts of litter and all sorts of ad hoc activities out here in Stadium Woods. And it's particularly gets bad, you know, during a football weekend, as you could imagine. And there's even some damage to the trees done off and on. Probably less now than in the past, because people recognize Stadium Woods now more than they did before, the importance of it. But it's always another ongoing issue that the facilities department at Virginia Tech has to deal with. Okay, so I'm just here in front of one of the big white oaks in Stadium Woods, and it's kind of a remarkable thing, but you all will understand this very well. But all 100% of the big trees in Stadium Woods are all white oak. And you understand forest succession really well. When I talk to different groups, I have to explain how that all works. Like, ask them, why would they all be white oaks? And as you know, they're one of the longest lived upland species in this in the Blue Ridge and Ridge and Valley province of Virginia. And so basically everything else has died away. We have other species in the lower age classes that come in when one of the big oaks succumbs to some disease or even abiotic edge effects. But when we were sending information to the university about Stadium Woods, when they were trying to decide whether to build a facility in here or not, it would have destroyed about half of Stadium Woods, the northern end of it. They weren't just going to take for granted that these were really, really old trees. We told them they were really old trees, but then the president at the time, you'll appreciate this more than some groups, it's almost laughable. He was told that there's no trees older than 80 years in Stadium Woods. And it was supposedly a person of knowledge told him that. And we have never found out who this person is. And we had told them the trees are over 80, but that meant we had to core all these big trees. And many of you probably core trees, and you know putting a 2-foot long screw while it's cutting the wood into solid oak is not a fun procedure. So we did, along with Dr. Carolyn Copenhever, who's a dendrochronologist in our department, did a complete workup of the woods, studying the dendrochronology. And this was one of the first trees that I cored out here. Quite literally, we walked into the corner of the woods down there and said, well, let's start here. And we cored that tree, and it then sort of became one of the famous trees, because that tree turned out to be, I think I have that on. Yeah, approximately 358 years old 8 years ago. And so on here, the bark is out here, of course, right? And so moving into the tree. Here's where Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. Here's World War II ending. Here's World War I. We've got to put where Virginia Tech was founded. Not long after when the Civil War ended, all the land grants started. Here is cool. That's the American Revolution. And here is 1697, where apparently nothing interesting happened. Because I looked up something to label that with, and there's nothing that anyone would hear of in 1697, so I just put the year. But that's the last wood we could get before it was hollow. And there was 314 rings back to there. And then knowing the diameter of the tree, and you all would be able to figure this out as well, we estimated it to be nearly 360 years old to the center. But that at that point, it's an estimate from there on out. And there are dozens of trees out here with this sort of same pattern and age structure in them. So this huge structure behind me, kind of plopped into the north end of Stadium Woods, is a rappelling tower used by our Corps of Cadets here at Virginia Tech, as well as a lot of EMT services throughout the state police. They will come in and train on that at various times. And I point this out because Stadium Woods has a lot of multiple uses. We come out here in classes in our forestry department. They come over here in some of the wildlife classes because it's right here. We got this unique treasure right here on campus. But then the Corps Cadets come out and do this, as well as do deployment exercises out here through the woods. Just a funny anecdote, we have been out here doing a dendrology midterm while, like, down by my feet are cadets laying on the ground behind a log on the ground with a plastic rifle. And we both apologize to each other, but they're literally doing their laboratory. It's a class, and that lab that day is deployment exercises in woodland areas. So it's a multiple use area, including fans of Virginia Tech football making their way into the stadium. So, and everybody basically agrees to that. So it's got a lot of unique things, again, based on its unique location. What we're trying to show here, a goshawk just landed up on a branch there, and it's not uncommon to walk through the woods and find piles of pigeon feathers, because those things blast the pigeons that live up underneath Lane Stadium. Stadium Woods, after all, right? And so that was actually a cool little treat there. So here to reinforce the fact that this is an urban forest, here's an old, what I believe, given the height of it, I believe it's an old clothesline. In fact, there's a piece of wire right here, so pretty sure it's a clothesline. And this white oak, the cambium has grown right over it and swallowed it up. And some of you might enjoy this. I actually had a question on my most recent exam in tree biology about this. I asked them to explain what was going on with that board. So I mentioned briefly before that around 2012, Stadium Woods was threatened with development, and it was the new indoor practice facility, which is just beyond the woods over this way from me. It's built there now. And in the end, it was the process worked, a process was developed, it was put in place, took about 6 months of decision making, and everybody was very, very happy with the decision, including athletics. Everybody, as near as I can tell. And the facility is down there, and the woods are here. And after that, the university actually funded a graduate student in the forestry department to write a management plan. And we were very, very fortunate to find an individual who was a certified arborist. He was an arborist for a university campus, and he lived out west, and he came over to the east for 2 years and worked with us on this. And when we were interviewing him, I said to Rodney, you know, you're likely to be on the front page of the Roanoke Times. And seriously, he ended up on the front page of the Roanoke Times, and he wrote this Stadium Woods management plan. And in that management plan, there are lots and lots of recommendations, and all of them were ranked as low, medium, high priority and low, medium, high cost. okay? And as you would imagine, there's not money for managing a big forest like that, and everyone understands that. But facilities department right away picked some of the low cost, high priority, and that's in front of me here. Prior to the management plan, this area here was mowed all the way to about the down woody debris there. It was grass. And actually, football player parking took place on the grass here. And they immediately jumped on our recommendation. In fact, they did better. Our recommendation was stop mowing about 10 yards out for 3 to 5 years, and then step it back another bit until after 10 years you get your way all the way to the pathway over there. And I was out here with a facilities individual, and he just said, well, heck, we'll just quit mowing it all right now. And I said, well, that's awesome. And the rest is history, and they quit. You can already see a lot of tree species coming up underneath there, and the compaction of the soil is repairing itself during the winter with freezing and thawing, and so that's all returning. And we've got litter layer building up on it. Before, it was literally grass and mowed. In fact, if you look up this way, that is how it looked there. And so the piece up near a Virginia Tech building is still mowed right there. But the rest of the entire length on this edge close to town is left unmowed, and that they were responsive to what was in the management plan, and that was greatly appreciated. So I mentioned earlier, just in passing, how there was once World War II veteran married student housing up in this north end of Stadium Woods. And throughout this little area, you can find old remnants of that. Here is old sewer draining. We're at the site of what was the bathhouse they used. They were in trailers, but they had no bathrooms or shower facilities. They went to a bathhouse even in the wintertime. And this was the location of that. And then you'll also find old pieces of sidewalk remaining out here through this northern end. And quite literally, it's being swallowed up and buried slowly but surely by the regrowth of Stadium Woods. So those are approximately, it's about 70 years ago they were doing that. Okay, so thank you for joining us on this virtual tour of Stadium Woods. I hope you learned a few things about this really rare and unique piece of property that we have on the Virginia Tech campus. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your meeting.